All right. On today's episode, we're talking to Dr. Soum about sexual health and his company, MysteryVibes.
Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
So welcome to episode number 16 of Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. And we'll go get started with Dr. Soum. So what is sexual health? Like, how would you define it? Why is it important?
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to share what we're doing. Sexual health, as we think of it, is anything related to sex, whether it's pleasure, whether it's medical, wellness, everything sex, all things sex is sexual health. So it could be something as fundamental as period pain, or something like a query about a threesome, and the way we think of it is if it's a genuine question from a person, whether it's a single person or a couple, and we can help find a solution, then that is what our goal is to make sexual health very easy to access, which is why talking about it is very exciting for us.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of this podcast, which is probably one of the reasons you're on it, is like, I like to have real talk with real people and just talk about all things about sex. I have different topics every week. So this definitely furthers that discussion. So, and I know I guess you started in the defense industry, and your company involves creating products for sexual fun and mystery in the bedroom. So if you want to kind of either talk about the history or what you're doing now.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. My background is defense electronics. I did a PhD in biometrics, which is looking at the human eye and understanding how to recognize people and how to create access control security systems. So similar in the sense that it was bringing engineering and medical sciences together and creating products. But that was 2 decades ago. It's a really long time ago, when biometrics was in its nascent years. We built that and we sold it back in 2009. And then we wanted to create, we as in, my co-founders and I wanted to create more things in the world of bio and engineering. How do you bring together medical knowledge from, leading doctors and defense electronics knowledge that we built over the decades. And the thing that always came up was sexual health. Just like we were talking about anything sex. How do you keep a long-term marriage exciting? What happens after you have a child? How do you recover from the pain? What happens after menopause or during menopause? How do you tackle dryness, or how do you tackle penetration pain? What happens to men as they age with erection issues? All of these topics are so common. There's nothing special about them. Yet, most people think that they're alone, and only 1 in 4 ever see a doctor. So really, 75% go unreported.
Wow.
So that's really how we thought, why don't we do something in this space? Of course, the engineering and devices is one part of that, but the content, the education, the talking about it is an equally important other part of that. And that's how MysteryVibe came about, helping people keep mystery in the bedroom or bring it back if it's lost.
And what's one of the ways that happens? Like, is it, I know you said education, but what's a good way to bring mystery back? Let's say, bring it back in versus bring it first, and then address all the long-term relationships out there where a lot of people, if you listen to most people talk about how they're not really having sex often. So how do you bring mystery back or start it again? What's one of the ways you would suggest?
Very, very true. And the first thing we always talk about is, and this is a well-known fact in research, but hardly anyone talks about it in the media, which is everyone thinks everyone else is having more sex than them, but no one is. So the first thing is to normalize it, which is most couples if you do a honest survey, will tell you, after say 5 years, 10 years, whatever that number is for a couple, they hardly ever have sex. And it's not because they love each other any less. Often, the love is extremely happy and deep. It's because life gets in the way. Maybe you have kids, or maybe you have work, or maybe you have both. And at the end of the day, sex becomes a chore and something that takes your energy. And you think, we'll do it later. And then that later doesn't come. So this is the status quo. This is the standard that most couples end up in, which is why anyone who's in that state should find comfort in the fact that almost everyone ends up in that state. What that means is everybody wants a solution. So the real answer, which is actually a really complex thing to do, the real answer is conversation. But it is easier said than done. Conversation is obviously difficult when it comes to couples who've been together for a long time and they have lost that connection. In terms of sexual connection, they still obviously have a great connection as a couple. It's not obvious for them to just sit over dinner table and say, hey, let's talk about sex. It doesn't come naturally. So how we recommend people do is use a topic that is related to what they want to try. If it's something to spice up the bedroom, find an article in the media which is reputable as a source. So, for example, if you see an article in New York Times which talks about how to spice up the bedroom, use that, share it with your partner. Say, hey, look, I came across this, interesting. See their reaction. We find that from obviously, 8 years of research that we've been doing, and often this is content we write and try to get into leading newspapers like BBC, CNN, and NYT. It is much easier for people to talk about and share this than a blog post from MysteryVibe.com. Because, first of all, they wouldn't know, who we are, and most people don't know any sexual wellness brand. And secondly, why would someone be on our site to start with, right? So it's like saying, if you find an article on Playboy, it's quite difficult to share if you don't already have that kind of a relationship with your partner where you are very happy to share adult magazines. So that's step one, is find an article, whatever that topic could be. It doesn't have to be anything significant. It could be very simple, like how to have sex after childbirth. Very basic stuff. So you share that, see the reaction, and if the reaction is positive, then look further into it, and that's when you get the next steps. The first step is the hardest, but once you overcome the first step, the next step is easier. And just to stretch that point a little bit, let's say you've gone through that initial barrier and you're back to at least having some intimacy, then you want to keep it exciting by trying new things. Because the biggest thing that we all forget is, as we age, we evolve and our desires change and our bodies change and our fantasies change. However, probably the last time we talked about these things was when we first got together with our partner, when things were very exciting. So if you want to try new things, the fear of rejection is generally very high, even though it's probably unfounded. But because the fear of rejection is very high, you would rather not talk about it than talk, get rejected, and have a tough time, right? So let's say we extend that. So if you extend that to something a little bit more saucy, let's say you want to try a bit of bondage in the bedroom, maybe handcuffs or whatever, blindfold. Again, nothing complicated. You can buy any of these things online for $10. But what we don't recommend is just buy them and introduce them without talking first, unless you already have that kind of relationship where you're trying new things all the time. If you're starting from scratch, it generally will backfire if you just randomly buy things. And we've seen that happen many times. So our recommendation is the same. Find an article in a big reputed media, share it, see their reaction. If it's positive, continue along that route. And then, so that's a tried and tested model.
Yeah, I could see that. And I actually did an article or a podcast on BDSM, an episode, and he talked very much about consent and communication, and kind of like you broach the subject and then work together, or decide together if you want if you want to try something. Yeah, I was just trying to say earlier with with the rejection, the fear of rejection comes on both sides. So no one initiates, and then they think the other one's already rejecting them. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy for both people. So, and then if you're like a new couple and you want to keep it spicy, is there anything different or a different way you'd recommend?
I think the best thing is, if you're a new couple, make sure you're building your relationship. And it doesn't matter if it's your first relationship or in it. You're building the relationship on the foundation of conversation. So you don't lose that, process in your relationship where you always talk about things. Because if you do that from the day you meet, then it's natural. And then, if you're comfortable with things, you could share adult content with each other. You can, send each other naughty porn gifs to say, hey, let's try this position, let's try this kink, let's try this BDSM, let's try sex clubs, whatever it is. It doesn't matter then, because you have that friendship where you can send things to each other, and the other person can happily say, nah, it's not for me. Or say, oh yeah, I love it, let's try. But in either case, it's a very friendly reaction. It's not like, you send that to me, I don't like it, this is not cool. It's like, oh, you like it, that's fine, but I don't like it. But you send the other thing which I like. So if it's a new relationship, it's super easy to put it simply, because you can then set it the way you want it to go. The challenging bit is keeping that, after 5 years, 10 years. So the initial bit is not actually difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, because you're already in that mode. But yeah, like you said, keeping it that way is the trick. And that's hopefully what we'll do today. And then, so your site, you said you have content where people can read about it, but you also have products like actual toys and things. And are they designed for certain issues, or just everyone can use them? Or it seems like, because you mentioned erectile dysfunction or stuff like that. Go ahead.
So just like with what causes these big gaps in people's sex life leads to that disconnection in intimacy in the bedroom, we can obviously start by talking about it, but then how do you solve it? Sometimes it needs solutions which are physical. It could be a vibrator, it could be a lube, it could be a different device. And that's where the second part of what we do comes in. So just to give you an example, childbirth is one of the biggest significant gaps in people's sex life as a couple. Now, it could be a year, which is not at all abnormal. Yeah. So the faster the recovery, the easier it is to get back to having a normal sex life. And we're talking about, potentially very young people in their early 20s even, right? When it comes to childbirth. So you don't want to lose your sex life for years and years when, you could just have a very normal sex life after you've recovered. And recovery is primarily to do with pain, because childbirth often leads to pain, either vaginal pain from scar tissues, which is stretch marks, or perineal pain due to tears or incisions. And of course, you could have pelvic pain. So our first device, which is Crescendo, was designed to mimic the human two fingers that you can bend and target inside the vaginal wall, exactly where you need. It could, wherever, and deliver vibrations. Because the solution that a doctor or midwife will tell you when you have a baby is reach with two fingers and massage the area where it's painful, which is, of course, a real solution, but it's very difficult to execute for a woman in pain. So what this does is hold it, very easy, bend it, target, and that's it, done. So that was our first device. It is now used for lots of other things. Like, for example, if you curve it this way and place on the lower abdomen just below the belly button, you can then alleviate period pain. So that's another medical study we ran. And similarly, you can use it for general arousal, because this is also very popular for menopausal arousal disorder, or peri or postmenopausal arousal disorder. So that's one of the devices. Then
I just want to share for people that can't see this real quick. It looks like a typical vibrator, but it's very bendy. So you're saying you can put it in all the different positions you need. So, in a sense, this is only audio. I can't see that, but
yes,
I can see where it would be
literally
helpful.
Imagine two fingers and how the two fingers bend, but it's much longer and delivers vibration. So, absolutely. And then the second device is the ED device, where it stretches. Imagine if this were the penis, it would first sit at the head of the penis, which has the most sensitive areas. It vibrates. All of this is a 360 vibration, creates the erection. Then the penis slides in so that it can hold the blood in the penis shaft, but has a slit here for the ejaculation, so that if they are trying to get erect in order to have sex to get pregnant, then it's very significant, which you can't do with rings. And then it has a full 360 vibration for the labia, so that if the partner needs stimulation during intercourse, which most women do, then they have the stimulation throughout. And even if the man ejaculates, the erection stays because it's holding it, and the woman can then orgasm with the help of the vibration. So this is the erection device. However, neither of them have to be used for medical purposes. And this was a very significant part of our design principle, is how can we make them look like pleasure devices? Because our experience when we started the research was the medical devices world of sexual health was very scary looking, like steel dilators and huge pumps and very constricting rings. And we thought, okay, that is one reason why, even if people find out what the solution is, they're quite scared to try them. Yet, everyone, or most people are, think sex toys are okay, or even if it's funny, it's not scary. I'm sure everybody's seen Sex and the City and Samantha, and sex toys are pretty commonplace. Whereas I don't know many people who will know a steel dilator.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because they look like anything else, even if people didn't know what it was for, a guy with erectile dysfunction could use it just as a vibrator and for regular sex, and the woman might not even realize it. Or, if it's kind of embarrassing to talk about, it doesn't look like something you have to explain before you start.
Because we find toys. Oh, so just let me tell you why we made it so toy-like. What we realized is from the data, most toys are bought as gifts. What that means is most couples toys, obviously, most couples toys are bought as gifts because that is a way for a couple to get that spice back into the bedroom. And the easiest way we could introduce this into people's lives, if we said, why don't you buy this as a gift for your partner for their pleasure? Because that is the easiest entry into that discussion for to enhance your bedroom. Because if you buy it for yourself, then there is the risk of thinking that is a replacement for the partner. Whereas if you buy it for the partner, there is no risk like that, and you seem considerate. A gift is always nice, and it's a pretty much safe option. So we built the whole brand around giving pleasure and about the partner, whichever way it is, and all the devices are created to fulfill that objective, is helping your partner have better orgasm, helping both of you have better sex. So yeah, that's kind of our I would say our uniqueness in we create medical devices and wrap them in this beautiful pleasure gifting wrapper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people that are listening can't see the device too, but it did look, I could see why it would be helpful and I can see exactly where it would work and that it would pleasure the woman too. So I would highly recommend if you have ED, that you look into this device. And where can they find it? Just at mysteryvibe.com?
Yeah, just mysteryvibe.com. So, as in the two-finger-like device, the first one, which is primarily for female genitalia, is Crescendo. The erection improving or better erection device is Tenuto. And then we have a mini Crescendo, which is very useful for holding in a palm and delivering vibration or reaching the G-spot during intercourse, or solo play, obviously. So it's like, half the size of Crescendo. Okay. It's just a very nice compact version. And that's called Poco. We only have 3 devices, so, it's very easy to find them.
True. And then is Mystery Vibe, is it VYBE or V? How do you spell the website?
So it's like vibe, as in, happy vibes. And our goal is the vibe brings mystery back into your bedroom.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and then can you say, well, I guess since you only have 3 devices, it shouldn't be hard to find, but I was just going to have you re-say the one for ED. What, can you say it slower?
Tenuto. Tenuto, Tenuto. So tenuto in Italian means to hold something for long, like hold the music for a long time. And what tenuto does is creates the erection and holds it for a long time. So that's why. So all of our products are named after Italian musical notes. So crescendo means to reach a peak. So the idea with crescendo is you can discover erogenous zones inside your vagina, which you never thought was even possible, and reach a new level of orgasm that you can't in any other way, because your fingers can only reach that far.
Yeah, I could see that be very useful. And I know lots of people deal with this issue, so I think what you're doing is a great job, and I'm glad you reached out to be on the podcast.
That's a really important point. I forgot to mention this, and I'm glad you brought it up. Lots of people deal with the issue of arousal disorder, which mostly people don't even know exists, but hardly anyone talks about it. So arousal disorder simply means it's not that easy to get horny. Yeah, in a very simple layman's term. And so many people suffer from that at all ages. It could be young people, could be older people, and it's often just psychological. It means there's nothing wrong with their body, the genitals, everything, nerves, blood flow, all perfectly fine, but often stress gets in the way, lots of thoughts in your head gets in the way, and maybe all they need is to de-stress. And it's something that gets worse and worse if you don't do something about it, because so every time, let's say somebody wants to have a good orgasm and they can't, they feel that there's something wrong with them, and that becomes, a loop, a vicious cycle, and they get, it becomes very difficult. And that's another topic we really talk about, because it's something that affects so many women particularly, but mostly they don't do anything about it.
Yeah. I've been there, because like once you're close, you start thinking about it. Oh, I'm close. And then you think too much about it and it kind of goes away because you're trying too hard. And I can see what you're saying. Like the more you try and the more it doesn't work, you get more frustrated, more stressed about it. And so it's, like you said, the vicious cycle. So yeah. And you have, you have content on your site that talks about this, or at least bringing it to the forefront so people will talk about
this. And, for us, it's always about, how do you give people very simple things to do? Something like, we have an article which says, these are the 5 things. Set your room temperature 25. Really simple, but there's a lot of research behind it as to why. 25 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is that?
Fahrenheit.
70?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 77. And that's because that is the temperature that the body feels nice and warm, but not too hot. And the good thing about that is the body doesn't then need blood to heat up the rest of the body. So then your blood can focus on the genitals and arousing you, rather than having to rush all over to heat you up. So that's step 1, very simple things. Step 2 is, some nice candle aroma. Step 3 is some music, and all of these things. And maybe some erotic audio or erotic porn, whatever it is, it's really just setting the scene, so half the job is done. Yeah, even before you get into bed.
That's what I was going
And
to say, yeah.
these are very simple things that we say, hey, try these things. Maybe it will work for you. Maybe it won't, but at least try this. It's so easy to try them. And obviously, we tell people, where you can find a good audio erotica or where you can find ethical porn. Like all of these things, we constantly curate, or we get feedback from customers what they like. And our goal is, how can we make all of this information, which is all out there, but it's really difficult to find everything and find very simple, actionable things that will make your life really easy. And that's our goal, is how do we do all that in a simple way. And also there are particular positions which make it easier to have an orgasm, or specifically if someone's looking for a G-spot orgasm, the specific positions, like for example, lying on your belly and putting a little pillow underneath to help push the G-spot up, and then using a vibrator which can reach like crescendo and stimulating. It's these little technical things that are just very easy to follow once you know what to do.
Yeah, yes, I totally agree with all of that. And I used to think there was just clitoral stimulation or orgasms, but I guess the G-spot, and I've noticed together they work really well too. But so you can have one just
yes,
G-spot.
yes, and a very interesting point on that is the clitoral stimulation is obviously the easiest of all, because it is prime. It's similar to the head of the penis. And what we found is, especially from research and feedback, is the best way for many women is to have a clitoral orgasm first. Then, once they have already got aroused, which means there's a lot of blood flow going on in the genitals, there is a lot of lubrication, natural lubrication, and they can add more. Then they can go for G-spot stimulation, either with a vibrator or with a partner, and they have a much higher chance of having a G-spot orgasm as a second orgasm than going straight in.
Yeah, I can see that makes sense. Yeah, and we're close to time. Once again, time has flown by, and I really appreciate this information and you. I mean, this is I think this will help a lot of people. So I'm thrilled that you are on the podcast. And I didn't thank you earlier very well, but I do appreciate you being on. And if you want to make any closing comments, I know you kind of already summed it up, but is there anything else you want to make sure we leave the listeners with from you?
Honestly, if you're starting a relationship, it's a great time to start it on the whole open conversation route, because it's so much more difficult later on. So for anyone starting a new relationship, or a few months in, I would strongly recommend think of it as your way to keep your relationship exciting for many years. And for those who feel like they've lost that intimacy and mystery in the bedroom, definitely try the article sharing method, because we find that so effective. And it's very likely to work. It's very unlikely not to work, because you have nothing to lose. You use the word interesting rather than it's great or it's weird. You use the word interesting. You share an article from a newspaper both of you respect, and then what's the worst case that will happen? Your partner will say nah, but then you can just ignore it. The best thing that will happen, they'll say, oh my God, this is exciting. And that will open up your intimacy like it was, or maybe even better than ever before. So, I urge everyone to try these things, the very simple things. And that's what we love. We love giving very simple, actionable, short pieces of to-do, rather than write a 10-page document about the research, which we do for our medical papers, but that's not read by anyone apart from doctors.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, this is really great information. Do you want to provide your how to contact you, or the website, or any of that? I know we kind of talked about it, and I'll put it in the description.
If anyone wants to contact me, I always love questions, suggestions, feedback. It's my name, Soum, SOUM, @mysteryvibe.com. And our website is mysteryvibe.com. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll find everything. And if you forget my email, we have a contact us form, and I will get it.
Okay. And like I said, I'll add that to the description as well, just to make sure. But like, I didn't know, I heard of erectile dysfunction, obviously, and I just assumed there was not much you could do about it. So it's good to know. And seeing this on screen, it's not intimidating, and the fact that it vibrates for the woman and the man. So, this is like a no-brainer, if you ask me, to go get one of these devices. And you don't even have to mention what it does exactly. It's for you as much as the man. So if you give it to your partner,
yeah,
as a gift.
A lot of our users buy it because they want the female stimulation. So, maybe the erection is absolutely fine. However, what happens is the man orgasms sooner than the woman, which is a very common issue. And again, not a problem at all. But they want their partner to orgasm while they're still inside them. So they simply wear it, and then just by holding it against the labia and it vibrates really powerfully, they can have that couple climax, which is a really romantic thing.
Yeah, and they have cheap little devices that are meant to do this same thing, but they run out of batteries quickly and they pretty much fall apart and break quickly. So this looks like a much more durable, reusable thing. So you don't have to worry about those cheap little ones. So
yeah, these are FTA Class 2 devices, so they have to be very well made. So they're actually very expensive for us to make them, but then we wanted that quality, and FTA Class 2 devices have to be a certain quality. So we our devices easily work for at least 2 to 3 years without an issue.
Okay. And like I said, thanks again. And it's Dr. Soum. Sorry for the mispronunciation earlier, but greatly appreciate you being on here. I think a lot of people will get a lot from this. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love talking about this, as you know, and this is literally the main reason why we have the company, is to get people talking about sex in a very open way.
Yeah, great. And a perfect fit for the podcast because we do the same. So thank you again.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.